Hey, so today we are looking at Renoise, and more specifically we're going through my process of making drums, drum patterns, aim and breaks, all that good stuff, and using that tracker interface to get the most out of what we're trying to do. So really, instead of talking about it, let's get straight into it. So just going to jump straight into Renoise, and this is my basic sort of template setup. Like I've got a few channels here, I've got everything laid out, but usually I use a thing called XO, so it's a VST. It gives me all the drum sounds that I want. Now I can like sort of scrub through and do all that sort of stuff. But for this one, I want to show some of the process with Renoise and how we can set up these sort of drum tracks like I do. So first thing I'm going to do is we're going to create a drum machine that works very similar to XO. So I'm just going to pick a new instrument slot. So coming up here, and what I want to do is choose some drum samples. So you might have access to a folder. There are definitely some drum samples inside of the interface already, but I use From Mars just because I got it on a really good deal. I'm not expecting you to get it, but what I'm expecting is having access to some sort of drum kit samples. So I might pick this one here. So I have these kits that I like. If I select one of these, you'll be able to hear them if this is turned on. So we've got different drums in that, and there's a few different elements. So what I might do is I'm just going to shift and select a few, but I'm just going to jump up to here and key zones, because there's a nice little trick to get this to work. So what I'm going to do, I don't need all the kick drums. I'm probably going to just drag this lot in, and then as you can see, as I move the mouse up, it's starting to scale to those key zones, and I usually work to C4. So I just drop them there, scale it out, and if I just bring up my keyboard, so as you can see, we've got that keyboard down here. I have like a nice little keyboard here, but we don't want to just use it verbatim because like I have a bit of a layout that I like. So usually for me, I like the kick drums from B to C because there's a nice gap there. So next for the D, I usually like that as a snare. So we've got that snare there. So it's just really just piecing it all together, but that just gives me those two notes there. The two black notes, I usually like them as an accent, so I'll just move these out of the way because I want to add some different stuff. So we've got that sound, which we'll bring up onto up there. Oh yeah, definitely put the cowbell on the other side. And then what I usually like is have the other black keys, so the group of three, have them as like the closed, open, and symbol. So we have the symbol there, which the tom is in the road, so we can just move that out of the way. There, move that there. And then I like feeding the toms in between where the white keys are. So I can just move we'll start with the high tom and then work our way to the low tom. Yep, so that one, that one, that one. And this clap, we'll find a spot for him. But it just means that all these sort of key zones are separated into like little areas, like the two black keys. We've got some nice accents for our snare. We got a snare. I might swap that with the clap just because I like having the alternative to the snare just close by. So I've got everything the way I like it organized. So if I were just to break down, if you have a quick look down here, so I usually have those first three notes starting from C. That's my sort of kick element, so low to mid, so snares, claps and all that. Got some accents on the black keys, so that part's playing all the low end elements. The three black keys on the right is all my highs, and then I have my toms with that clave at the end. So really that is just setting everything up to work well, but there's another thing I want to set up just with the samples, just so it works a little bit more, and it involves those two there. You probably heard they play over each other, so if I was to, they're both playing at the same time. So what I need to do is select them and make them into their own group. So if you hold Control and click, come down to these mute groups, and we're going to set this to 1. So when we play them together, you can hear that they're cutting each other off. So that's really one of the main aspects is just making sure that when you create a drum machine, it's going to work like how drums work. So closed hat and the open hat is the same item. So doing that makes it really good. Another thing too is I'm just going to select everything and make them one shots because they'll just ring out. So it's not like if I quickly remove a note, they're just going to play through. So with everything said there, I think we're at a really nice point to have a drum kit, but I think there's a few other little effects that we can throw on to make this sound just really nice. So what I want to do is just come over to the effects panel. I will say you can set up those effects chains in the tracks themselves, like I'm not stopping you from doing that, but this is more for that instrument control. So if we come back to effects, we're going to start effects chain. All of them are going to have the same effects chain, so I usually leave this quite clean if I want to put like a little bit of effect over the top. But what I like doing is, say that snare drum, like the 80s, having a bit of a reverb sitting on there. So I'm just going to create another one. And what we can do is we can change it straight away. So we can come down here and change the effects. So it's going into effects 2. And we've got similar controls. So if I look up a reverb here and then drag that across, we have a very clean sounding drum. But when we have that snare, we're getting that reverb. So I can make that a little bit more, so it's not as big and bold. But what I like doing at this point is really having a master effects chain on here, so adding a bit of compression in that before it goes back into the sound or the tracker workflow. So I'm going to start another one again, but what we want to do is come back up to these two, and I'm just going to look up a send effect. There we go. Drag that one in, and we're going to mute the source, so it's not going to make a sound, but we're going to route it into that last chain here. And don't forget, you can name these as well, but you can also copy and paste them like that, so you don't have to duplicate things. So all those sounds are routed into this last channel. And really, like, the first thing I like to do is throw a compressor on. So I'm going to choose the bus compressor. We'll give it a bit of a tweak now, make it a little bit more punchy, and we can add some extra flavors on top of that. But really, this is just like how I sculpt out a really nice instrument that's handling our drums. And if I was to do anything, I could right click up here and go save instrument as, and all that information that I've set up already is going to be saved, and then I can pull it back in. So it's just a really nice way to set up a drum machine inside of Renoise. So enough about making instruments, let's actually make some patterns right now. So if we jump straight back into here, I'm going to go into the edit mode, and I'm working in my template project, so it's probably got a little bit extra information. So I'm just going to create a completely new track and sort of discuss some of my like ideas when it comes to making drum tracks in a tracker, because really typically song I'll use 3 channels. I keep this sneaky little percussion area just in case I have some extra flavor that I want to throw in there. But really it comes down to like the kick, so the very lowest of the low, so that's the thud that keeps the song going. We have the snare, which sort of includes the claps and all those other like mid-range elements. And then you got the hats, which is like any sort of those high elements. So if we were to start using our instrument, so just making sure it's selected, and we'll start up here. Let's say we want to make a 4 on the floor. This is where this little area comes in handy. We can manually do it, but if you go Control 4, let's go and change that number. So every time I hit a key, so if I was to just put my kick in, and using a keyboard, you can sort of control the velocity, so you're getting a little bit more of that control. But I can quickly just put in my drums and have a listen. Now, if this was kept playing around, it'll probably wrap around and come back up here. And as you can see, I've got my little gray loop point. So we're just going to work on this track right now. So we'll keep it in this loop area. Next thing I want to add is my snare. So I'm just going to create a very basic snare kick, just so I can start tweaking. And let's talk about putting in a hi-hat. So there's a few different ways I like messing with the hi-hats. Like I'll do like maybe set it Control 2 and just program each hat independently. But I like adding variants through having longer sort of range. So I'm just going to keep it 4, and let's say, and then I'll come into here, and then say if I make this into a really interesting number, so let's say, oh, I can drag it around, say 12, and we'll put some like little tiny Cool. So adding like those odd times into the tracker workflow, you're creating some sort of polyrhythmic elements that jump in and out of the sequence, but it's all contained in one little track. And that was just using 4 of the basic sounds. We've got something that's really nice together, and we can start augmenting this. So with this snare track, like we'll just isolate it by right clicking up here. So it's pretty basic. We could add some flavor elements in here. So what I like doing is we've got some toms. Let's add some of them in there. So probably skip the first bar and probably come somewhere down here. Probably not that sound. And try and hit them a bit softer because we're going to create some ghost notes. And we can use that sort of high element here. So that goes boom. And then we can do like a double tap. So it's just a few little elements that sit there, but let's say we want to start doing some tricky things like saying reversing a sample and having like a build up to our snare up here. So if I was to just pick this one and we've got our snare there, what I want to do is an effects command here. So if you're not familiar with trackers, they use these effects commands and they're really just a way to manipulate the audio in different ways. And Renoise has got a nice little menu down here that we can go and actually look at our different stuff. So all these commands will affect the sample, like the track commands will affect the track, and the global effects will affect all the global elements. So what we're looking for is the reverse, which sometimes it jumps away. Yep, play sample backwards. So as you can see, a little bit of descriptor, we want to put 0, 0 so we get that reverse. So let's do that and have a listen. So we've got that build up into the snare. So what I might do is I'm just going to copy this line, so Control C, put that back. Sometimes it can be a bit temperamental, and that's like why I use the keyboard quite a lot. If I set this to 16, it'll happen every bar. Cool, so that's with the elements in there. And if I was to bring everything together, and we could add some extra flavor, like trackers are really renowned for re-trigger commands. So usually I like putting them on the hi-hat element. So if we come back in here, we can find it again with this trigger phrase, re-trigger line, this one. So as you can see, there's a few different parts to it. So Y is every tick and X is the volume as well. So how they range in and out. So if we were to just have a play, all right, so I put the R command in and I've got it set to 4. So if you listen out, you hear it like stutter a bit. You can go with a higher number. So it stutters a lot less. And if you have a smaller number, it's going to be a little bit more glitchy. So we can use that to populate a few different elements. So I might set it to Control 6 and see how I feel. So I can be like, and just moving up and down the keyboard to like try and pick different interesting notes. And you can have them in between notes as well, so it's not starting on the initial point. And we can populate them as well. So I'll just use my fingers to pick some random numbers. So they're the basics of FX, and really have a look at those commands because there is a lot of stuff that you can do with them and really push what you can do with Musically. But you notice like we do have that yellow column, and I did use the velocity to capture the command so I could create like variants just by pressing the keyboard, but we can plot them in as well. So one thing I really like doing, if I come down here and add the pan to the hi-hats, we can sort of create a bounce between them. So usually what I like doing is go Control 8. So I'm jumping every 8 steps and then picking these like sort of offset hats and just bouncing them left and right. So it goes between somewhere between 0 and 8, 9. So you'll notice the color, it'll be green if it's correct. If it's not, it'll come up gray. So you just want to pick values in between those two. So I usually like just putting it 8, and then I'll come down here with 10, and then I can bump that around. So it's just giving that little bit of width to the sound as well. And it's probably not more accurate to like what a drum kit is, but meh, we're playing with trackers. So the other one that I really like doing is this delay column here. So we can actually like shunt numbers around. So this is really good if you want to get your music off the grid and making it sound a little bit more human. So just selecting all those columns there. And we're going to throw a humanize on it. So there is a nice little column to the right of me over here, and it's got a bunch of little tools that we can use, and we'll come back here a little bit later. But really what I want to come down to is this last one here, and we're going to select humanize, and this is going to take all those numbers that we've plotted in and just bounce them a little bit. So between 10 points, it's just going to move them all around. If we hit apply, as you can see, it's put some like little notes everywhere, but this is just bumped everything around. So it's all off the grid now, and we're not like having this very static robotic sort of like machine. We are having some variance in there. So really handy. So we got a really nice loop going, but I think there's a really important aspect to trackers that isn't as apparent in how you're programming them, and that is triplets. So I thought I'd give a bit of a showcase how to set them up. So I'm just going to select this percussion channel just because it's there, but I'm going to set up a triplet. Now we are dealing with a grid of every 4 notes, so we're dealing with like quarter notes, and triplets don't really fall on the grid. So how do we do it? And really we want to create a sort of division of what's going on. So I'm just going to put in the notes and sort of explain as I go, but we want to have, I'm just going to set that to 1, so control 1, and we'll use the hi-hat. So I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, skip 1, sort of like that, and I'll keep it a little bit easier. Just control, put 1 there, put 1 there, put 1 there, kill. So that's not a triplet sound. So how we get the triplet sound is creating that micro move, but using it as a way to create percentages in between, because this one's on the grid. We want to bump this to 33% and this one to 66%. So it's sort of like if you cut an apple 3 ways, like you got every third or like that sort of position. And because this is in hexadecimal, so it goes between that 0 and 255, but that's FF. What are the numbers we need? And an easy way to remember is I usually go 55, so I'm going to go control 4, so 5 and then 5, and then coming down to this next line, oops, we'll do that, and then A8, so 8 and 5. Just an easy way to remember. And if we play that again, we've got those triplets. If I turn off, and if we bring some other elements, and that is just a really nice way to set up triplets and all other divisions as well. You're sort of creating these groupings that you can sort of do a division in between, and then using those market move to move the parts in between. And it might feel a little bit like data entry, but it doesn't take too long to set up, and really it adds a lot of value to what you're trying to do. So we've looked at a drum machine, S thing and Renoise, and how we can use it to make music, but I think there's a really another special way that we can make drums inside of Renoise, and that is through processing breaks and setting them up. So this is sort of like my process on setting up a break, and I do have a few here. So if we have a listen, we can hear it going off. If it's playing a little bit too much, you can press this button here and it'll disappear. And like I've done, I've just created a new instrument up here so you can follow along. So if I go into the sample and just play a note, we can hear it, but if we play it at different timings, they're going to be a little bit out. So we need to sync this to the type of music we are. And I did change the BPM, but what we want to do is type in that beat sync here, and we want to adjust it so we can, doesn't matter what time we're playing it, it's always going to be in sync, but you can play with some of these like time stretch options to get some different sounds. So it's just giving us a little bit of flavor, but with a sort of aim and break. What we're doing is we're cutting it up, and we can go the more traditional route, play the sound and then coming into effects and then jumping around that position to play. But I think with how Renoise works, we can look at doing some slice options. Now, I personally haven't found a even slice option here, and there are some external tools that you can pull in to do it, but I just find it pretty quick to like just have like this 8 snap setup and just turn on the slice, and you can just click in the zones that you want. So you can do something that's on the grid, and like say if you mess up, it's not hard to like bring it to that next snap point. So really you're just looking for those periods that bring the noise to life. And typically I wouldn't play with a break this long. I actually work a lot more with shorter breaks, but that's really up to you. But being able to put in all the points like this, I've got my keyboard set up, so if we look at the key zones, it sort of starts around, here we go, C2. So we have all our little parts all broken up for us, and we can start playing with them. So we can do similar things, like I might just throw a effects change just to give it a little bit of a boost. So with everything cut up, something that hasn't carried across, which we need to account for, is that this beat sync didn't carry across. And if we want to just play with any BPM, it'll be better if we select them all, and we're just going to turn it on. And because we did cut into quarter notes, we're going to turn this down to 4. So if I play through these now, and if we change the BPM to something slow, it's always going to be synced up. And you can play with this number, so if you want to play it a lot faster, so if you want them to be 8 notes, you can play with that number there and start doing stuff. But really I want to start plotting this in, so just going to set this back up to 130. So now I want to jump into edit mode, and I've got this column here. I've just turned everything else off because we're just demonstrating, but really all I need to do is go Control 4, so I'm going to jump every quarter note and just type in the basic recipe, which is just following the keyboard. So this is where we can start playing with it, and really you just go start meddling with the sequence and seeing what you can come up with. So I could do something like, and then we could say, well, maybe repeat some notes. So we could come down here, so A2, and so, and that's just creating some variants. Same thing, we can start applying effects and really start creating a new drum rhythm out of a aim and break and really putting it out there. So I just wanted to cover that because I think it's a really important aspect to trackers and how we can make music. It takes up one channel, so it's really efficient, but we do get a really cool drum groove out of it and something that we can supplement on the top. So there's be times where it's like I'll make like a drum and bass machine and then have that as like the hi-hat. So I create a filter, cut off the low end, and have those high elements alongside the drum and bass. So it's really nice to know those two because they can play with each other really nicely. But for this example, I'm just going to move forward with the drum machine aspect and show you how to expand out the loop. Let's get away from that 4 on the floor. So if we just jump straight back in, I've taken out those extra parts, and really we want to expand this section out. So we could add, like, we could jump the number up here and change that so it's 128 steps and then start programming on below. That's one way to do it. Another way I like doing it is just coming in here, selecting these parts, Control C, just going to create a new line, or you can click duplicate, and that's just create a new version of that. You can come up here and hit this little button up here, and I'm just going to make this tutorial just so I can following along and just making sure I know what section the music is. And if I select these two here, both of these are going to loop through. So I want to do my changes on this channel here, and just right clicking, we can scroll down and go Shift Spacebar, and it's just going to play from that point there. So I can put a little bit of a fill going on. So got the instrument selected up here behind my face, and let's add a kick there, and probably a bit too aggressive with 2 kicks. You don't need to change too much, but changing a little bit just changes up. Cool. we'll just jump into this one. We can add a little bit more elements down here. So we could add an extra, say, tom, about, and we'll go with the low tom. That's not low tom. There we go. And we can hit insert and then backspace. And then for our hi-hat channel, we can maybe cut a few notes. We're getting a little bit note dense there. So if we were to play all this in context. Cool, so we got a little bit of feel that's just changing up the sound. And say, because it did wrap around up to the top, we can use that symbol here. And that's just taking a 4-bar loop and just augmenting it that little bit has extended it out into 8 steps. So really that's how I build on tracker workflow. I'll start my little loop that I'm working on. I'll work horizontally to fill it out as much as I can. And then I'll start building out the track, changing up elements going down. And I can duplicate that again. So I'll do that. And what I want to do is I'm just going to select everything here and I'll scroll down, add to here. Paste, and what I want to do in these 2 tracks here, I'm going to try and capture those snares. So what I want to do, instead of that sound, I want the clap sound. So I need to bump the notes up by 2 semitones. And there's a nice way to do that. Like I said, we'll come back to this little toolbar here. So if I go 1, 2, so it's just changed up the sound, and that's going to completely change the feeling of this sort of track. So if I come back up here, +2, these 2 have the claps, these 2 have the snares, and if we were to play all that together, there's a 16-bar loop that can keep repeating and keep moving on. So it's just a nice way to be able to expand out the tracker workflow. You create the most amazing piece of music that you can, using up all the tracks, and then you can start taking away and making something out of it. So like some of the little tricks I like doing, if you hold Alt and click, you can sort of close out the elements. So if and it doesn't mean that you go in there and you have to delete the track and think, oh, what was there, and come back and try and fill it back in. You can do that sort of stuff. But yeah, that's how I construct it out, and I'll just keep duplicating down. But I think we're at an interesting little point to see what we can make of this little track. Alright, so I've had a quick play. I just put in an interesting little art bassline thing, just using Vital and one of my little instruments, and I thought just having a bit of a jam just to show off what you can do. So it's just a really nice way to be able to bring those elements together, like just throwing some sort of bass on just gives some context. But really, when it comes to doing drum beats, it really comes down to how you program things in. But just with Renoise and some of those really nice tracker workflow features, you can get some really amazing drums going. Like the samples I have is probably dated to more of the 80s. I should have done some more synthwave things and push that sound, but really it comes down to the sounds you have and how you create those instruments and some of those effects that you make, because there's also these sort of like macros that you can apply, so you can actually control them on the fly, like I was doing with those knobs with the automation. So there's a lot more here. I just thought this would be a really nice way to wrap up how I go about making drum samples or more drum instruments for Renoise. So if you did think that was useful and you think it would help someone else out, definitely give it that thumbs up, because it does tell the algorithm to point it to those people, and they'll probably get a little bit of a kick just being able to make some drums in Renoise. So in the end, if you have any comments or queries, or if there's some ways that you want to use these sort of instruments to wrap up your drums, because there's a bunch of different ways you could either go full like tracker workflow, you have one instrument or one sample per instrument and you make your drums that way, to the fully the other end there's phrases in there. So how would you personally use that as well? Please feel free to leave it down below. I do try and have those conversations down there to flesh out this sort of content and give it a little bit more for people that are looking for that extra bit. So in the end, if you did enjoy this one, I do have a little bit of Renoise content popping up on this channel. So if you're looking for that, I look forward to seeing you next time.